This is something that we've been talking about for a while now as us Zelda fans, and something that I've been actually praying for from the very beginning. And I made a video on this a month ago talking about Ocarina of Time getting a remake on Nintendo Switch 2 and it being the big Zelda game for 2026. And there seemed to be a lot of evidence for this. If you guys didn't see the video, apparently a bunch of patents came out from Nintendo that showed what looked to be some type of new updated ideas and mechanics for what seems to be a Zelda game. Now, if you look at these patents, it seems to reference Ocarina of Time, especially this one as it shows the camera panning up to look at a picture on the second floor. A lot of people thought that this was referencing the Forest Temple dungeon. Now this patent kind of confirms in my head that this is about Ocarina of Time. You can see what seems to be Navi the fairy circling the player, and the fact that you can ZL the picture on the right wall there, and it even shows the fairy flying over to the picture frame. If you've ever played Ocarina of Time, this was an exact thing. It just seems to be an updated version of that, maybe adding some more sparkles and highlights of the fairy. Of course, a remake version would do that. Now, these patents also have been brought up by Mike Odyssey in the past, where he showed off some things that actually came true. Nintendo is pretty known for their Zelda patents actually coming to life. We've seen some for Tears of the Kingdom that showed some type of building mechanics. We've seen the ones from Tears of the Kingdom that also showed the brand new skydive mechanic and also pulling your bow out while you're skydiving, which came out to be true. We even seen the ascend ability going through platforms. That was a patent that came out to be true. So yeah, a lot of these patents are to be believed. Now, we also know that Aonuma has a history of teasing things before they happen. Like, he literally got on stage during a Zelda orchestra concert and it literally asked everybody if they would want a Skyward Sword HD, which would actually turn out to happen just like a couple years later. I think the same thing happened with Majora's Mask on the 3DS. And yeah, there's just a lot of instances of Aonuma just saying like, hey, you know, kind of teasing a game to come, and it kind of already happened with Ocarina of Time. Now, we know the Zelda movie is slated for, I believe, early 2027, and interviewers asked if something like this could be coming out for Switch 2 to kind of cross-promote the movie, and Aonuma just said no comment, followed by laughter. And there's been like this thing with fans, whenever he does that laughter thing, it normally hints at something. He did the exact same thing with Majora's Mask 3D, and it actually ended up happening. So obviously we were pretty excited for that, but we have more news in the weirdest way that I think has ever happened, which is the reason why I'm covering it, because we actually are finally getting some rumors popping up again from some inside sources, which we haven't had in a while since Switch 2 had been announced and come out. But this one comes from a source that is very unlikely. This comes from the account Nin10doland on Twitter. This account literally just shows Nintendeals. That's literally all they do. And, you know, they've been doing that for years. Nothing but Nintendeals. In fact, I've never really seen them tweet anything opinion-based or anything. It was just kind of like, here's this deal. Go click on this link for this deal. Here's this Nintendo Switch deal. You know what I mean? So the fact that they've come out of nowhere and literally just tweeted a Zelda remake on December 8th. And of course, everyone in the comments is losing their minds. This is something that's just strange. You know, for somebody like this to be tweeting something like this, they must know something. We've had a weird year with leakers as well. In fact, we had Zach from Switchforce actually do the same thing. He's just a content creator on YouTube, and he knew about when the partner direct was going to be. He knew about when the general direct was going to be. So I think some of these content creators are getting some inside scoops and some of these people online, and it seems like Nintendo has something here. But then they tweeted again, and it feels like it was both a bit serious and a little bit of hinting at something as well. It states, hey, listen, if you're experiencing hardship or in crisis, please reach out. And it has the National Suicide in Crisis Lifeline and different numbers that you can call. Yes, this is very important. Please reach out to somebody, whether it be a hotline, whether it be family members, or whether it even be me. Reach out to somebody. You are loved. Jesus loves you. But yes, what's very interesting about this as well is at the very beginning it says, hey, listen, these are the iconic lines of Navi, the fairy companion from the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. So yeah, it seems to be pointing towards something with Ocarina of Time and a remake that's coming soon that Nintendo has a scoop about. Dude, I'm trying to not get my hopes up about this, but oh my gosh, it's just so exciting. When you look at the, likelihood of this happening, it just makes a lot of sense. You know, we're still super far away from the next mainline Zelda game. I mean, Tears of the Kingdom just came out, you know, at the beginning of 2023, so we are still at least another 2 years probably until we even see the thing. I think a perfect tie-over right now is to give the Zelda fans their classic 3D Zelda experience again, because Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom kind of took that from us. So revisiting that again, but with the greatest Zelda game of all time for a lot of people, would be amazing, dude. But this is a game that they can't go light on. They have to come in swinging full-fledged for this to hit. I need this to be a seriously important project for Nintendo, where it's not just seen as a quick little remaster or a remake. It needs to feel like a new game from the ground up, but obviously being the same game. Just a couple new mechanics, some new locations added and stuff. I mean, shoot, you know what, let's talk about it. What would they even add? Personally, I feel like just having the graphics boosted up, you know, for a big Switch 2 title, you know, specifically only for the Switch 2 would be massive, dude. Maybe even tweak the combat a little bit, maybe adding some like parry systems like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom had, just a way to add some more flavor to Link and his sword fighting capabilities instead of just, you know, an overhead swipe slash forward or just, you know, pushing the same button and just swiping in front of you. I think it'd be pretty cool to add some combat changes, and something else that'd be really, really cool as well as just to see Hyrule Field kind of expanded on a lot more. I can already hear people complaining in 2026 of, oh, Hyrule Field's so empty, there's nothing to do there. So I think it'd be smart if they'd add some like small little housing areas, maybe a little neighborhood village type thing, or just maybe some smaller areas just to add to the game. I don't think adding anything is going to make people upset, and maybe tweaking the bosses to be a little bit more difficult would be nice, or maybe adding some new elements to some of those bosses to expand on them. But besides that, maybe even add some cinematic cutscenes for some of the bigger moments in the game, because honestly, you don't really have to tweak much else. I think all the side quests and the additional heart pieces and their locations and even the dungeons themselves are really well designed with some really awesome themes. You take some creepy locations like the well and really crank up the graphics, dude, it could be just insanely scary and just so much more immersive this time around. And there's no question in my mind this won't be one of the best-selling Nintendo games in a long time. Probably one of the best-selling Zelda games ever. It's gonna be up there with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, mark my words. This is like, not only is it extreme nostalgia, but it's just like, you know, 3D classic Zelda at its finest, but brought back in such a beautiful way. I'm just picturing running out on Hyrule Field with, you know, brand new textures, grass everywhere, flower fields rolling across the land, and just the birds flying in the sky, hearing that music play. I think it's truly enough to make any grown man cry, and just having that experience on Switch 2 next year could honestly carry the weight of a brand new 3D Zelda game. Now, a lot of people might say this will take a lot of development time and resources, meaning that the next 3D Zelda is going to be pushed even further if this happens, because this is initially going to feel like a new 3D Zelda game for a lot of people, and also for Nintendo to remake something like this to this caliber. Not if they outsource a lot of the development to another company. This is something that's done a lot from Nintendo. For instance, for Zelda, remakes are normally outsourced to Grezzo, so maybe they choose Grezzo to help them out with this project, or maybe a completely different company altogether. But man, if you just look online, this is probably one of the most wanted remakes ever. Like, there's so many fan animations and awesome videos out there, and 4K mock-ups of what the game could look like, and it just looks so good, and I love seeing these from these awesome content creators. Like, for instance, please check out Rowan Link's YouTube channel. It's full of awesome concepts for what this game could look like, and he's also made tons of renders in Blender and animations, and like, there's so many art styles and directions that they could push this, but man, it just makes me so of an Ocarina of Time remake, man. And yeah, it would be a massive thing for next year. Something else is Nintendo almost every single year has something Zelda related for us, whether it be a remake, a remaster, a 2D game from top-down point of view, or a 3D game. There's always something for the most part. I mean, you look at 2017, we got Breath of the Wild. 2018, we got the original Hyrule Warriors, but this time in a definitive edition. 2019, we got the top-down 2D remake of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, and then in 2020, we got Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. 2021, we got my personal favorite, The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD. 2022 was then the only year we didn't get any Zelda related content for the most part for Nintendo Switch. What we did get though was Majora's Mask coming to Nintendo Switch Online on the 64. 2023, we obviously got the follow-up to Breath of the Wild, being The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and in 2024 we got the spin-off, which was also a top-down 2D Zelda game featuring Zelda and Echoes of Wisdom. And in this year, in 2025, we also got a lot, which if you count the 2 Breath of the Wild Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 editions, but we also got yet again another Hyrule Warriors game with Age of Imprisonment. So with Nintendo having a big top-down 2D Zelda game that was also made by Grezzo back in 2024, and this year having Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom re-release, plus a spin-off with the Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment game, it only makes sense that next year is another big remake for the company. And when you look at games that can be remade for Zelda, the one that really stands out to me is Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. They both had remakes on the 3DS and they were received pretty especially Majora's Mask, which a lot of fans did not like the changes that they added. But yeah, I think it's time that we get a true from the ground up remake and even kind of reimagining of Ocarina of Time, but on Switch 2, which is superiorly stronger hardware than the 3DS and the 64. I also wanted to add that the Game Awards is actually tomorrow night, and a lot of this stuff has been happening around the Game Awards time, so a lot of people are thinking that maybe Nintendo finally has another presence at the Game Awards. I mean, announcing Ocarina of Time HD or whatever it's going to be called at the Game Awards feels like a perfect place. A lot of these people are, older adults that's grown up with the 64, grown up with The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. I think it would bring the house down if they announced something like that at that location, and I feel like it's probably one of the better venues to do it. I wouldn't say watch this in anticipation though, because it's the Game Awards. You can never expect anything from the Game Awards. And normally if Nintendo does have some sort of presence at the Game Awards, they normally announce it before, like, hey, tune into the Game Awards for some announcements or something, but who knows. But what do you guys think? Is there credibility behind all this madness with Ocarina of Time? Are we actually going to be getting a remake of this game? And is this something that you would like for next year? Is this something that maybe you wouldn't like for some reason? Let me know in the comments down below. But thank you for tuning in. I hope you all have a blessed day, and I'll see you all in the next one. See you guys.